What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another weekly breakdown. The week commencing 13th to 17th of Jan. As usual, we're going to talk through DXY, EURUSD, where I'm at with my trading, how things are going, what have I learned, experiences, all that good stuff. If I'm a little bit quiet, bear with me. No one else is up in my house. I've got to get this done early today. I want to get this out for you guys and want to be in sync with the real time, so you guys can watch on the weekend and look through the week that I've just been through, because we've all been through it together. So yeah, where are we looking with FTMO? We got the payout this week, so that was Tuesday, and hopefully, every single time they've been bigger. Hopefully we can continue with that. We got our 200k challenge up and running as well. You can see here we've got this up and running. Currently we are in 2 positions on EU, but we're not too sure how we're looking at that. And you can see there we're up a little bit, about 3%. Obviously, we've got a long way to go before we pass that. If we can get to the trading line objective, yeah, we're all the way up there, so we've got a while. So we'll see how this goes. What else? Fivers finally got my funded. I only got that 2 days ago. It took about 3 days for it to come through. What they do is they let you know that you've passed the extra trading day that you needed to get. They'll then give you the account straight away, but they then wait for the verification. So it will seem like it's on there. You could try and sign in, but the active status won't be there. It'll be disabled. But overall, I still got it through. It did take a bit longer than I expected for Fivers, but so be it. Now what they do is something different on your refund, is they actually credit your refund. So you can see there that it's added to my total balance here. What that means is that after 2 weeks, when I can get a payout, I don't have to actually trade this account. I can just withdraw the payout. With FTMO, you need to make profit and then you get the payout. With these, you can just have this sitting here for 2 weeks. Obviously, you can also lose it. That's the thing, you could trade it and lose it. So obviously, you're not going to, in theory, lose it because you've already upped that amount. And if you take a loss and they take a win, you'll get the payout with the refund. But food for thought there, if you want to leave that for 2 weeks and then claw back what you've put in and then start trading it, that's really up to you. So yeah, positions this week, we took a few. Just lastly, with a payout, I've talked about splitting my profits. I'll be putting money into challenges. So City Trades Imperium, $100,000. I'll see how they go. They've got very good rules. Really recommend them, and we'll see how we get on with them. Obviously, it's 10%, 5% on phase 1 and 2. You're allowed to trade weekends, news, events. So perfect for swing traders like me, really. As for the week then, where are we looking? So very, very big week, because I don't have this on my chart. I'm using capital.com. DXY, a lot of people use TVC, and you better see on TVC, we have actually tapped 110. So whether or not you use capital.com or not, obviously that's really irrelevant, because I'm keeping in mind that 110 level is key. The 110 level is important, but it's not the be all end all. So already coming to this week then, I was still looking for this 110 level to be tapped. So we can see here, there's no doubt that we're starting to gather some liquidity down here. We're actually picking up some wicks. And you can tell that if we start to have issues up here and we really struggle and we top out, then we're coming down for all of this liquidity down here. So that's definitely kept in mind, especially down to the fact that previous week left this area without breaking the previous weekly low. We haven't done that since down here. So looking at this week then, obviously of course we're looking at continuing up. And the area on the weekly I was interested in actually is this order block here. If we come into that, we could get a big reaction off it. So 110 and above, there was a few key levels I was looking at. 110, 110, 500, anywhere within that realm, after all the significant push up, surely we'll get a pullback at some point. Either way, just got to trade what we see, not what we think. And the dailies are still printing up, and we're creating bullish structure, simple as that. We had a nice little fair value in here as well. So we're looking at maybe pulling back into this if we create a high. And once we do, we can then get bullish confirms to continue bullish and get the upside we need. So that was what I was looking for. EU, actually one thing more on the DXY, one thing I was looking at. If we go on the monthly, you can see actually that this here, if we type it up, It's a monthly fill. So if you look at this, it's a monthly imbalance fill. We actually closed last week above it after tapping it in to the first few days of the year. This means there's a higher chance for price to continue up after we get a wick. So I was also keeping that in mind. As for EU, where are we looking on the weekly? So you can see here that we've been very, let's just get this last week. This is the weekly close here. We discussed last week about how important this liquidity is here. We've taken that out last week, but we still closed below 102,500, like you can see. If you're looking at, we got parity here at 1, and then you've got 102,500, you've got 105. We're staggering up where we've previously wicked and continued up from where we've had issues before. So we know now we've broken through this level. That could be significant that we're going to carry on down a little bit longer. Because also, yeah, you could say we haven't broke this wick, so we could still reject off it. But that's a very big upside wick. Really telling me that we could see more downside, so I was looking for that. Once again, like simple, I'm just looking for higher time frames off that. We've got this nice little fair value here on the daily, so I was looking at a position of this on the higher time frames. My idea is these equal highs up here, we ain't coming back to that. If we're going down, we don't need to see massive pullbacks. We're going to see a little bit of a push up, we're going to create a top wick, and then we're going to continue to break these lows. Therefore, what I'm looking for is really something within this area. What I could get out of this is significant liquidity here on the 4 hour. So really this lines up quite well. I'm not too sure exactly what my first entry was. I think it was literally just here. And I had a hot zone covering. So I mark up this kind of area here. And I wanted stop loss to be covering all of this. So I've ended up putting my stop around 40 pips. Target will be the low. Obviously, if the low starts the week down, we're going to continue to have a further target lower. So that was my first position set. And I had another position set on the 4 hour. You can see at the 4 hour leg is actually pretty significant. We've got, whether you want to use that high or this high, it's really up to you. What I can see here is within this area, if we're going to continue down, I was also liking, to be honest, this was standing out to me, this 4 hour fill. So I've also ended up putting another sell, and I put it covering, that's our first position, this one's covering this fair value gap as well. So we could have come higher into this 4 hour, but I wasn't expecting a massive pullback if we're going to come down. So I just wanted to cover this area, the 0.79 on the golden, and then look to target the lows. So I did have a double stacked position there. Made sense based on the weekly, so that was my higher time frames there. And obviously, of course, if we then get a resistance, I would be selling back down to the lows. As for GU, weekly time frame, very similar really. If this was the point at which we were going to head up from it, we would not have seen a weekly candle break through it. Then we're looking at this wick here. Now that could be significant. It's not a standout liquidity point for me. I was liking these lows down here as the next target. So in my head, as long as we see that continue downside, that's my target. Just mark up equal lows on the weekly, because this in fact gave us the push up, and we never come back to take this wick out. We had a huge retest of 125 as well. Now we've got another key level around 123. You can see how important that was when we ended up coming back up, and we've had issues with it throughout the cycles of the way GU's been trading. We'll leave that colour for now. So we're looking for downside. Of course, you've got the ability to come back into this imbalance fill on the weekly, and you're not expecting the previous weekly high. You're trading within the previous weekly range, and really my sales are from anywhere in this area. I'm not going to talk through it because they never got tagged in, but I was looking for a pullback into that to sell. Then you've got the imbalance fill, but we never come back. Obviously we pushed down so much on GU, we had to pull back so much this week. In my head, the weekly broke 123. Well, we ain't done with the downside yet. I'm still looking for a retest of this for us to come down. So we'll see how we started the week. We did in fact start the week bullish on DXY. We took out previous weekly high, and that's where the 110 level and like the other charts would have been tapped. So I'm keeping that in mind. It's not going to stop me from being bullish on DXY yet. I actually need to see that change. But as for EU, we also made a new low. So now obviously my targets on these that I've set will be going lower. We've come back into that key level as well. We've tapped it. Is it ideal that we made a low on Monday? It could be the low of the week. Very rarely will it be the low of the week, but when you're getting a wick that's pretty big, we're looking at like 65 pips. It's something to take into account. You don't really want to see that. When we got the pullback last week, it was very quick and decisive of where it wanted to reject from. So I am keeping that in mind. It's not as good. As for GU, we also did the same. Did not take out them lows though. So in my head, I'm still thinking, oh, is this a further low that we're going to form to then pull back? So as for Tuesday, I mean, there's no confirms. You can't take a counter trade here. If you trade higher time frame, taking a buy here is so risky. You may think this is an exhaust, but it could easily just be filled. We're still below this key area here. Now, of course, I think if you are going to sell, you're better off selling higher than this level, because down here you are very low. So also keeping that in mind. Now Tuesday, I think was another slower day. We got a further pullback. So now DXY looks like it needs to come back into this. You know, we're breaking back below that monthly area, but we know anything below here could just be a wick, and we can come and test these highs here. If we go on EU, we did get a further pullback. So now this is looking pretty good in terms of we still haven't come into this liquidity. I'm still looking for sells, and GU is just so low. Now we do have a problem area on GU now around here. Let's try and mark this up on the fair value here. So I wasn't too worried about this to start the week, but you can see here that we're clearly having issues at it now. What it did create when we pushed down on Monday as well, we created a fair value here that we started to hold. At this point on GU, I wasn't even interested in trading it, because, you know, buying it down here without confirmations of structure changes, not how I trade, and trying to sell it when you haven't even come back to retest is very difficult as well. So as for the Wednesday, obviously we had CPI. With that coming in terms of even what we're seeing here, you know, Waller said that it was actually a good print, which you can tell because it's gone up as expected, 0.2, but core CPI did in fact drop. So it really was a bit of a mixed one. You could see the way it reacted proved that. But we also had pound, and pound did not come out good. Despite that though, we didn't really see much reaction on further downside for the pound when we go into Wednesday. So we'll start with the pound news. And I mean, it ended up wicking down, and then we saw continued upside for the rest of the day, but we still didn't break this key level. So at this point now, we're retesting that. I think a sell off that, if you're trading even more scalpy, would have been really good. But targeting the lows it's not ideal yet. You want to see strong bearish candles and closures. You can already start to see liquidity picking up around here, whether it be the best form of liquidity. It's not the best, but what could happen is we could pull back into that and then see this taken out if we're not going to come and retest them lows. So in the back of my head now, you're now breaking this daily. There's not really bullish confirms though. It's like a 20 pip body. It's nothing crazy, 30 pip body. But as for EU, this is where we got tagged into our highs now. So if we move this down, you can actually see what happened, because it went crazy. Pretty down the 4 hour. So yeah, we got tagged in. So both positions were tagged. Now what happened was I got slipped on this first one. The main entry area ended up being about 350. So this just meant my stop loss has obviously become smaller and overall lose less, which is good. Very close to getting stopped down that first position. But the reason why I've got this area is because I can account for anything to come into it and still be in the trade. So that trade was tagged in on 2 positions. Now on this account, I can't trade because 2 minutes before and after news. So that trade was not put on this one, but all the FTMOs, and I did not have this account yet. We've traded just purely an FTMO on this one. So we've then looked for continued downside off that. We got quite a nice reaction on, what was it, Wednesday? And you can see here, we're seeing that resistance being held. The only thing I'd say is going into Thursday, yesterday didn't make it the best, was once you've seen this on DXY, the DXY closed like this, bearish, EU closed bearish. So I'm not going to be trading expecting the next day. In terms of me holding this position, it's fine, but I'm not going to add positions now because of how these two aren't correlating. In my eyes, they're, if anything, against each other, which isn't really what you want to see, which didn't give me the most confidence in this higher time frame. But as for GU, yesterday it retested this daily again, and you can just see the weakness. You know, there is no convincing dailies holding above 123 yet. Any buys in here are a short-term pullback, and really don't get caught out. If you're on the 15-minute or 5-minute, you know, there is opportunities for buys, especially when you get down into these areas. But I think if you're trading higher time frame, I mean, I want my sales up here. I don't want buys until we see convincing bullish weekly candles, and then we can get clear daily plays back through this level and above. And really, that's where we're going to get the best moves. But as for EU, yesterday did not trade. So one thing I was looking at on EU, where's the problem area? Because, okay, you can look at the key level, you can look at this low that we didn't break last week, and we swept to start the week, but it's a pretty decent FVG here as well. So this is the area that I'm looking at, that we come into. Oops. So this here is significant now because, okay, we pulled back last week, we caught ourselves, but we never broke the daily. We made a new low with body and wick, but we never actually saw that daily break. So now we're having problems around this daily. My whole idea now with yesterday closing bullish and coming back into that same level is, if we wanted to see downside, then I'm expecting this low to get cleared and for us to break this level. If we're not going to do that now, I'm looking into the rest of the week and going, okay, well, we're clearly having issues now coming down. If we're going to struggle and we're going to get bullish confirms, I would not deem that a bullish confirm in a minute. Reason being is, didn't engulf the previous candle, hasn't really got any strength or a significant rejection back into that daily. What we do have though is this high. This will become, especially on daily, if we struggle here, that's an inducement. We're going to have to at least take that out if we're going to come down, because this high would have failed to take out this low. I would even expect us to start coming into these areas, to be honest, if we struggle again, which means, what do I want to see on the weekly? So these positions I've got in a minute, they're in profit. They're in profit by about 50 pips. I've still got 100 pips to go. So I clearly need a significant push today and a clear weekly candle suggesting that we're struggling to come up. One thing I'm going to consider later on, and this is to end the week, is this is the level at which the weekly would engulf. If we close above that for the week, I would close out my positions, whether that be tonight, if it's looking like that way, but really I'd hold until Monday and get out, because if we engulf here, we are definitely having problems. We're having problems at a fair value gap here. We've took out the lows. We've also faked out at the key level at 125, and we've engulfed. I would be, in fact, looking for upside at that point. I think clearly on the weekly, you've got this wick high that we could end up taking out for upside. Maybe need a proper retest of 125, 105 again, sorry. But really at the minute, it's about calculating. When you're in a position, especially in higher time frames, you've got to be active and willing to know when your trades are not looking very good anymore. And I'm very good at that. The only time I'll close a higher time frame is off a weekly closure, because the dailies can play around and do whatever they want in that week. That's fine. And even if we get a weaker close and we still, hold above this level, this could just be a future order block and we could continue down. So I won't be closing out if that's the case. More than likely, it'll have to be breaking this level. Otherwise, I'll let this trade play out, and if we lose, we lose. Generally, I don't take multiple high time frames. You can see here, these overlapped just happen to get tagged in. So if I do win, it's a bit of a lucky one. If I lose, maybe put a bit too much risk on the line. But really, like, my trading plan allows me to cover multiple POIs within the same trade, and it will give me a good win. So just got to let that play out. Can't do much about that. Set the positions from Sunday night, let them play out over the week. But as for that, it's really the end of the week. We're not really seeing any clear options. I think we always knew when DXY started to approach that key 110, this is where the trading's going to get a bit more difficult, and you've got to be a bit more proactive in deciding, are we actually going to be bearish for the continued future, or are we actually going to start to see some changes? And as long as you adapt to that and you're ready to pounce when you do get them bullish confirms, then it's fine. But I had to trade the downside, expecting it to continue until it's proven to me that it's not going to. And then at that point, that's where a good trader adjusts, and they then look for the opposite trade. But yeah, that's it, guys. Pretty standard week, nothing crazy. Obviously, talked through everything there. Hope you guys had a good week. Of course, I think that was a harder week than the previous week. Not as much volume. You can see that the trend is looking dry. But we'll see how we get on. I will end up, if these trades play out, I'll end up passing phase 1 just off them first 2 trades, which is crazy. But we'll see what we do. Have a good one, guys. Have a great weekend. Take care. Peace.